You can feel like you're behind, but who are you behind of? Your journey is yours. I know going into a new year, we have a long list, but I want to encourage you to go into the year being grateful for the things that you already have. Our identity doesn't become the gift God has given us. Our identity is in Christ. If God could drop an email that has the proposal, the list of everything, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, give me the day, give me the time, that's what I'll prefer. Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Stephanie if you're new here, and if you're returning, hey, thanks for coming back. Today's video is going to be about mindset shifts you should have in 2025, and I even encourage you to start implementing it now, because ending your year well is starting your year well. I'm going to be looking down because I don't want to ramble, and I have some verses that I would like to share. Let's get right into this video. A little recap. 2024 for me has been amazing, even though it's also been challenging. So what I mean by amazing is I'm finally at a point where whatever God has told me to do, whatever I've envisioned for myself, I go for it. I know that I'm being backed by God and I'm being directed by Him. I'm free from comparison and people pleasing and feeling like I'm being watched and not doing the things that I need to do, which I'm so thankful for, because it's something I struggled with for a long time. However, what has been challenging is consistently believing in myself, because there's nothing like an overnight success or thriving immediately. It's taking a lot of healing, and it's feeling like a long process to arrive at the person that I know that I'm called to be. I know it's a journey, that's life. However, I have found that a little challenging, because it has required a lot of surrender, a lot of pivoting, a lot of just going and trusting that God got me. And God has never steered me wrong, so it's also stirred up my faith and required me to have more. Going into 2025, I want to even have a better momentum. I don't want to delay obedience. I don't want to drag my feet. I just want to rest in who God has called me to be and how He's shown up for me consistently. And so the mindset shifts I'm going to be sharing are revelations or convictions or lessons that I've learned and ways that I've grown in the past year and I've seen fruits in. So let's get right into it. The very first mindset shift is gratitude. I know going into a new year, we have a long list of, I want to do this, I want to do that, but I want to encourage you to go into the year being grateful for the things that you already have. I want to encourage you to have a mindset and a mind shift of gratitude, of contentment, because on social media, when you compare your life with other people, you can feel like you're behind, but who are you behind of? Your journey is yours. You do not need to keep performing, comparing, envying. You can trust in your journey and know that God is always going to show up, and He's actually shown up, and you might be missing the green pastures right in front of you because you're looking at someone else's blessing or something that you want to achieve that you haven't achieved yet. But I encourage you to take inventory of your life and see all the things that have already happened, all the things that you once prayed for that you're living in, because at every stage you're living in an answered prayer, living in a place or something, or you have someone or just a blessing that you've always wanted. And it's easy to go from I prayed for that to this is just so hard. For example, you could have been praying for a job this year and have a job now, but just dragging your feet and upset about the job. And so I want you to realize that you are living an answered prayer and you choose to be grateful. It's a muscle that you build. You choose to be content. It's a muscle that you build. You don't have to be comfortable or settle, but you can also be happy where you are and shift your mindset from this blessing is too heavy to my hands are full because I prayed for this, and at least it's not empty. A verse that I want to leave you with when it comes to gratitude is 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 16 to 18, and it says, "Rejoice always, pray constantly, and give thanks in everything, for this is God's will for you through Christ Jesus." So this teaches me, I can go on and on about this, but it teaches me that in every circumstance, there is something to be thankful for, even if it doesn't look like it. And I know that you might be going through something that you're like, you don't actually know what I'm going through, and there's nothing to be grateful for. But I feel like in hindsight, we always realize that there is something to be thankful for. It's just in the moment, it doesn't feel like it. The second mindset shift is obedience. And this has been like the theme of my entire life. Well, no, this has been the theme of my 2024. Obedience. I don't know why I ever dragged my feet to trust God. I don't know why I ever dragged my feet to take the first step. Because as human beings, or let me talk for myself, I like to see the full staircase. If God could drop an email that has the proposal, the list of everything, what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, give me the day, give me the time, that's what I'll prefer. And that's when I'll say yes, because that's the kind of person I am. I like to be ready. I want to have a plan. I'm a planner at heart. But this year, working with God in obedience has taught me that you won't have the full plan, but God will never leave you high and dry. God is not wicked. Like, God is going to come through, come correct. He's going to exceed your expectations. He's going to bless you. He's going to turn your test into a testimony. That pain is going to birth purpose. And that is something that I've learned so well in this year. I'm looking down because it's a verse that I'd like to share with you. Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 1. It says, "Therefore love the Lord your God, keep his mandate and his statutes, ordinances, and commands." My Bible is saying at the top, remember and obey. And it just summarizes it so perfectly, because when it comes to obeying God, it's very scary. But I feel like if we could reflect, if we took a second to reflect on how God has come through in the past, we will be quick to obey him, because we know that when we say yes, that's all he needs. He's going to make it happen. He's going to, like, what is time to God? And that has given me so much comfort. I'm so rest assured in the Lord and the timing and how he comes through and how he turns things around, because there's nothing impossible for him. Like, he cannot even fail even if he tried. Like, God said, try me, and he has never failed. If God cannot fail, why are you scared to obey him? I'm now so excited to say yes to God, because I know immediately I say yes, he's going to do something that I've never seen. He's still performing miracles, and you only see a miracle if you say yes. If you look in the Bible, when he sent Moses to go talk to Pharaoh, Moses had to say yes before going to talk to Pharaoh. That's when God sent the helpers in the form of his brother Aaron and his sister Miriam. You have to say yes first. When Abraham said yes to God to sacrifice Isaac, he had to say yes first before God sent the lamb or the animal that he used for the sacrifice. You have to say yes first. It was scary, of course, going to sacrifice his son, but his yes is all God needed. He said it afraid, but God provided and met him where he was. The third shift is faith. Having faith in God, as little as a mustard seed, is all you need. And I feel like when you say yes, obedience and faith is connected, because when you say yes to God, you are having faith, you're trusting him, because faith is essentially trusting in God. And with that, I'll leave you with Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. And it says, "Now without faith, it is impossible to please God, since the one who draws near to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who seek him." This is like mic drop. It's so good, because I feel like when we think about faith, we're thinking about man. Because why would we ever doubt that a God that thought about us before he placed us in our mother's womb, God that carefully knitted us, a God that is intentional about every single one of his children, asks you to have faith in him and you doubt? It's human beings that can fail. It's human beings that are fickle. And like, you have to have faith to please God. If you want to switch from a people pleaser to a God pleaser, all you have to do is have faith. Have faith that God is going to be God. He's going to be who he said he will be. Like, I don't even know how to explain how 2024 has done something to my brain and my heart, where my trust in God is next level. Because I feel like I was in my own strength so much, in my own mind so much. I was sitting in my past and placing God on the same level as man and as myself. And so I was wrestling to have faith in Him. God cannot be compared to anybody in His own category, His own level. There's no one else like Him. And so having faith in Him should actually be the easiest thing for us, but it's the hardest thing. And the devil also plays with that, because when we can't see the full thing, we are not reflecting and we're not remembering God's track record, that's when He plays with us. Remember all the times that God has come through for you. Remember all the times that God said He would do something and He did it and exceeded it. Remember all the times that you thought you would never heal, you never smile again, you never laugh again, you never move again, you never do something, and you've done it. Because God can be trusted. And so when it comes to faith, remember that it's impossible to please God without faith. And when you know God, because it says the one who draws near to Him must believe He exists. When you know God, when you tasted of His goodness, when you remember how He has just shown up for you, you remember that the God that exists is one that can be trusted. And so you can draw near to Him, because you also know that He's not a wicked God, and He will reward you for seeking Him, for resting in Him, for chasing after Him, for trusting in Him, for obeying Him. So if that alone is the only thing you take away from today's video, that's enough. And another verse that I wanted to mention when it comes to faith is Romans 10 verse 17. So faith comes from what is heard, and what is heard comes through the message of Christ. So therefore, if we want to have faith, we must be in the Word. If we want to hear God, we must open our Bibles. We must sit in His Word. We must read it. We must let it read us. We must meditate on it. We must reflect on it. We must take the lessons from it. We must take the instructions, the commands from it. Whatever we need is in His Word. And so if you want to have more faith, this is where you go to have faith. You don't look at your circumstance. You don't look at your past. You don't look at your present. You don't look at your future. You look to His Word, because He has all that in His hands. And so Romans 10 verse 17 is also another verse that stirs up your faith, because it makes you know that you will not be able to find faith all the time around you and from what you are hearing from people in society and the world, but you find faith in His Word. And so when you are in His Word and you are full of His Word and you are soaked in His Word, and that's what is taking most of your attention and most of your brain space, you will have more faith, because you've seen it over and over in His Word that He comes correct and He'll do what He says. So the next mindset shift is discipline and consistency, because I think they go hand in hand. I would like to start with a verse, and the verse is 1 Corinthians chapter 15 verse 58, and it says, "Therefore, my dear brothers and sisters, be steadfast, immovable, always excelling in the Lord's work, because you know that your labor in the Lord is not in vain." So I love this verse because it embodies both discipline and consistency. It also mentions that we have to excel. So I read that excel in my own interpretation as do well and like be excellent, always striving to be excellent and consistent at what God has told us to do. And I think even when it comes to discipline and consistency, the parable of the talents also plays a role there, where you have to know how to be consistent and disciplined, and in which area or which giftings. Because if you are like the servant that had 5 talents, you might be like, where do I start from? What am I disciplined in? What do I leave on the wayside? What do I do in this season? Because I have so many giftings. But being yielded to God and having discipline and consistency, He will reveal to you how to mesh some of the things, what needs to be the forefront, what's a hobby, what's a passion, what's ministry. He will teach you all of that and teach you to also be excellent in what He's called you to do. With consistency, discipline, it goes with excellence. It also goes with being faithful with little, like it says in Luke 16 verse 10, because when you are faithful with the small, with what is in your hand, when you plant the one seed that God gives you, it will bloom. But if you keep it in your hand, it means that if you keep quiet, you sit on your giftings, you feel inadequate, you are not trusting that God chose the right person. And God makes no mistakes. If he's giving you a gift and giving you a talent and he's giving you a calling and purpose, it means that he knows that he's graced you for the execution of that thing. And if you're trying to find affirmation or validation elsewhere, it's not going to work. You're going to keep performing, you're going to keep chasing after people. But when you trust in God and you know that he has called you and he has graced you, and you find your identity and your worth in him, you're able to do the very thing that you thought you could not do, because it will be by his grace and not by your own might and your own power. The next shift is humility. Even though God has called us to be bold and courageous, you can see that in the Bible there's a duality of the lion and the lamb. And even though Jesus was Christ, was also human. And so it teaches us that even when God gives us a gift that we can do with our eyes closed, that we don't need any accountability or any checking or any mentorship or any covering over us, God has still called us to be humble. Because if you cannot be corrected, if there's no one in your corner that can give you the sit down and shut up card and can check you or can tell you are straying away, or you're being selfish, or you're being full of yourself, or you are using your gifting as an idol, then that gift and that thing God has called you to do can also be the very thing that you struggle with. It can lead to your downfall or become a sin in your life. So I'm going to give an example. If you are great with inspiring or encouraging, and so like people come to you for a lot of advice, inspired and aspire to have the kind of life that you have, if you are not submitted and you do not realize that you're a human being and you're not a standard but an example, it's easy for you to want people to make an idol of you. It's easy for you to push people away that are correcting, people that are in your corner that are trying to have your back or see your blind spots. You can think that they are your hater. You can also end up wanting to be an idol. And if you're not the center of attention, that's a problem to you. You can use your influence to call people onto you as opposed to people onto God. When people are aspiring to be like you have to redirect them. You have to tell them, I am only an example. I am flawed. Yes, thank you. This is not like you are trying to deflect or don't know how to be thankful about being honored. The difference between honor and idolatry. There's a difference between being respected and being put on a pedestal. And you have to be the one that quenches it. You have to remind people that we all serve a perfect God and we are all imperfect. The gift is a gift to you and to people, but you are not the gift. We have to realize and make sure that our identity doesn't become the gift God has given us. Our identity is in Christ. The gift is aside. Our identity is in Christ alone. Identity is not in our influence. It's not in the amount of followers you have. It's not in the amount of money you have, the amount of property you have, the amount of people that like you or hate you. If you make your gift and your identity, it's easy for you to drift away from God, because you can do it without him if you wanted to. You can do it in your flesh and people won't know. And so I really encourage you to yield to God and surrender that gift onto him. Make sure that that does not become the beginning of the end. The verse for humility that I have is from Proverbs chapter 11 verse 2, and it says, when arrogance comes, disgrace follows, but with humility comes wisdom. When you're humble, you're teachable, and when you're teachable, that's when you learn and you become wise. Because when you are proud, you think that you know better than everyone. When you are proud, nobody can correct you. When you are proud, you never own up to your mistakes. When you are proud, you can't hear correctly. You're full of yourself when you're proud. When it comes to humility, it's very, very important to have that mindset shift, because it's easy for pride to become a downfall, because pride always comes before a fall. You have to be prideful to be full of yourself for there to be a fall. When you're humble and teachable, that's when your character is sharpened, and that's when you have more wisdom to thrive. And even then, you still know that there's more to learn, and that's the beauty of humility. The last mindset shift is surrender. but there's like 2 points where it's pivoting and execution. We talk about surrender. It means that you're yielded to God, and whatever He says is what you're doing. So if God says it's time to rest, you don't say, oh, I'm in the middle of this, can I finish this first? That is not surrender. If God says it's time for you to move, or it's time for you to get this job, or it's time for you to quit this job, or it's time for you to apologize, or it's time for you, like, you do it immediately because you're surrendered to God. And so under surrender, if God is pivoting you, like for example, in the Bible, Abraham and Lot are going together. God says you guys need to separate. It's uncomfortable, but with surrender, you have to be okay with pivoting. Yes, you mourn the past. Yes, you miss the people, but you have to be willing to pivot because you're surrendered. And when you're surrendered, you're yielded, and you trust God's timing for your life. When it comes to execution, that is the one of the biggest mindset shifts for me in this year 2024, because I like things to be a certain way, and so perfectionism becomes my idol. And then I drag my feet in being surrendered, being obedient, and having faith, and being disciplined, all the things, because I'm afraid to execute, because I don't think that is the right time to execute, even though God says it's now. And so when it comes to surrender, sometimes you don't think you're ready because you don't have the website, you don't have the camera, you don't have the right makeup, you don't have the right clothes, you don't have the right this and the right that. That is not what God is looking at. God is looking for your yes. Once you say yes, whatever He leads you to do is what you do. And you'll be shocked how His hand will be on it, how His favor will be on it, how you breathe on it. And that's when you realize that it's not your works. It's actually not your works. Like, yes, you do your part, but it's God that moves the hands and the hearts of man. It's God that turns the rock solid heart of Pharaoh into a heart of flesh to release the people of Israel. It's God that is going to open that recruiter's eyes to see your resume. It's God that is going to turn things around for that mortgage lender to give you the mortgage for your home. It's God that is going to drop that car, or God that's gonna open that door. It's God that's gonna make you meet that spouse. Like, whatever that prayer point is God that will do it. And so if you're not ready to execute, and you're not ready to say yes and be fully yielded and surrendered to God, there's so many things you're going to miss out on. And even though we can delay our own blessing, God is still faithful and kind and loving, that all things will still work together for good. But just imagine how rested you would be, and how much smoother things would be, how surrendered and how relaxed, how wonderful life would be if only we're just trusting in God, yielded to Him, and doing what He's asking, as opposed to being in our minds, being overwhelmed, overthinking, and it never results in anything. But it's easy for our flesh to always go back to thinking that we are the ones in charge of our lives and we can do something, when time and time He has proved that we are not the ones in charge of our lives. Like, we need God to guide us. We need God to lead us. God is the only one that's going to meet us at the point of our needs. He even knows our thoughts, even when we don't talk. So how much more talking to Him about something that He already knows that He can actually solve? God is loving, and He wants to know you, to be intimate with you. He is a good Father. So why not be in communion with? Why not? To recap, mindset shifts, or the shifts that is going to make 2025 an amazing, phenomenal year, or is going to help end your 2024 and start your 2025 amazingly, is honestly being surrendered and rested in God. It's having gratitude, being obedient, being disciplined, being surrendered. Having faith is being humble and trusting that God is with you in the surrender. He's with you in the pivot. He's with you in the execution. He's with you when you obey. He's with you when you have faith. He's with you when you are worried. As long as you are yielded to Him, you will find rest, you will find favor, and you will find joy in the year coming. Even when there's trembles, and even when the ghetto tries to come, God's grace and joy is going to keep you, as long as you keep your eyes focused on Him and you know that He's not going to steer you wrong. So that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, for sticking around. Let me know which mindset shifts resonates with you the most from 2024 and which one you are taking into 2025. What stood out to you? What verses have you been meditating on? What season of life are you in? Let's have a conversation in the comments. Let's encourage each other in the comments. And I pray that 2024 ending and 2025 is a phenomenal year because we are trusting God to be the Lord of our lives, and we're trusting Him with every step of the way, even when it feels scary. Check out my Instagram page at Stephanie Kubi. You can subscribe here if you love this content and encouragement like this. You can check out my Substack at Stephanie Kubi, where I'll be sharing these letters. Thank you again for being here. Hope you enjoyed the video. Wishing you the absolute best. Take small steps. Small steps matter. Bye.